now? This morning, Sir William?
Today I think, Lucy, I must review and edit that discussion.
Discussion?
My very fine dinner party.
Appleton?
Jane Appleton, precisely. Let me go through it and I'll voice note it, I think. Take my calls for a while, will you?
I have the Appleton recollection. Are you warm enough, Sir William?
Don't mother me, Lucy.
Recollection begins.
The Arabs say, when a man sits to eat, he loses his mind. And I always disliked all those power breakfasts and working lunches, so I had thought to eat first and talk later. But of course with Appleton's questions, the discussion soon started.
So I'd like to write this study as though I were explaining it to the people of the mid-1990s.
The Dark Ages.
Well, probably just the start of what we now know as design engineering.
Yes, Jane was the catalyst for it all. I'd been planning a little gathering of some of the best in the engineering business, and she'd called me up to say she was writing a history of engineering design. Jane had what I liked, an outsider's point of view, hopefully explaining us rather better than we engineers often do. I think it would help Jane if we were to talk through the design cycle. Why don't we start by thinking about the beginning?
The beginning, yes. Well, I confess, that's the bit of the design process that I find difficult, the very early stage, where thoughts are rather fuzzy.
What's wrong with a large piece of paper and a soft pencil and an eraser, of course?
Nothing wrong, but why limit yourself?
My beautiful Susan. She'd been the dutiful hostess for me for an hour by then. Now it was time to start expressing her very expert opinion.
OK, Bill, you sit in your office in that shack on the beach near Tahiti. I've seen the articles, and very nice it looks too. But at the Whittle Institute, we're running trials on a new package. It supports tentativeness and that suspension of judgment that's always present in early design. Its neural networks can detect emergence.
That's when,
You get an entirely new effect by the combination of two known ones.
Like sun and soil leading to a good claret.
Where does your funding come from?
That's, well, let's just call my source a secret admirer.
Can't be Brussels or London.
How can you justify the cost of a bunch of guys mooning around while the software does all the work?
Now, come on, Bill.
We're not trying to de-skill engineering design. That's why we still need good graduates. Are you still finding good graduates nowadays?
Still depends on the university, doesn't it? Some, thank goodness, are taking a systems approach now, partly as a framework for a wide range of studies. Others are simply insisting on a broad engineering curriculum.
Well, in my company, we get our various specialists to talk to each other using a very simple device.
John, a good man, modest. Bit of a varied career after he graduated, but now runs his own small consultancy. They're designing an injectable device for human circulatory diagnostics. It could be a world beater.
We've built a 2,000 times magnified model showing the implant we're designing.
like a working drawing?
Not exactly. Rather, it's a focus for all our designers, one which lets them ask questions. For obvious reasons, it's in the coffee room.
That's great, but at the early stages of design, my corporation still values the soft mathematical models we've developed that allow qualitative simulation, often driven by knowledge sources.
Ah, yes, Anne. One of those slightly terrifying North American lady executives. Power shoulders and a first-class mind. Oversees systems for a large telecom corporation whose share price listing speaks for itself.
Models using fuzzy reasoning?
Actually, we're using the new branch of mathematics the Americans call ballpark equations.
So who's the main user of these soft models?
The person you'd call the master designer. The one formulating the problem while at the same time exploring all the possible solutions.
But how does the master designer talk effectively with the other specialists?
Indeed, the interplay of different specialities. And that used to mean working groups, minutes, misunderstandings, office politics.
A lively chap, Paul. Always a ready smile. And rather a sharp tongue. But there we are. His small design house does well for itself. You're describing your last employer?
Yes, now defunct. It was a nested hierarchy, not to say nest feathering, which just took too long to make decisions.
I hear you're doing okay now.
Yes, we're small with a very flat management structure. Moreover, we're based on the old guild principle.
An open organisation with close interaction between associates.
Just so. I'm the MD, but as Anne has already hinted, that stands not for managing director, but master designer. This guild is made possible by computers. For a new system design, the software tells the master designer what components are available off the shelf, which need modifying, and which need inventing.
But with respect, even a bright guy like you can't absorb all the detail.
Absolutely. Obviously, my people have their own specialist computer-aided design tools, but we've also got some neat software called Share Tool. Now, this translates between master designer and individual specialists. We call it the Magic Mountain.
So you communicate sensibly and make good decisions?
I firmly believe so. For example, the specialist designer, the production engineer, and the marketing expert can all vary some design detail, which the shareware then calculates as an effect on the problems of the others.
Didn't it used to be called Concurrent Engineering?
We just talk about good engineering.
And what about working at a distance? Well, I mean, everyone lives, well, all over these days.
And yet we must work together. John, you're not a fluid flow expert.
But I know a man who is. My friend Hiro Okada in Kyoto. We often work across our transparent blackboards. The telelink to Kyoto costs, well, almost nothing.
You use automatic simultaneous translation, I presume?
Well, yes. My Japanese is still bad, but we get frustrated sometimes. Seeing him across the screen lets me judge, what to call it, his attitude. And for concluding teletransactions, we've developed the equivalent of the firm handshake using personal identity technology.
Nice. But are you comfortable working at that distance?
I was skeptical at first, but when Hiro and I met in Sydney last year for dinner, we met like old friends.
Then, Jane, there are non-human helpers that we can use. John, you're not a doctor yourself.
That's right. So how did your group climb the learning curve? Consultants?
Well, not right away. You know they're expensive. What we went for was rented advisor software. In this case, on toxicity and materials, plus 2 agent characters to deliver the advice.
So you can choose your colleagues?
Yeah. Mike prefers executive-looking women, and Samantha goes for well-dressed older gentlemen.
But these aren't just cartoons.
By no means. They're computer-generated, but they listened to our questions and gave us good advice. But at a certain point, the Tox advisor recommended that we contact a live consultant.
So, do you really feel that this software consultancy worked?
Quite well, though Sam's now taking a personalised course on toxicity through the distributed university.
And you use virtual visualization too, I hear.
Inside an artery, where our new product will be located, intuitions just don't hold up. We have to use virtual reality to appreciate, for example, the fluid flow problems.
Okay, Jane, let's get back to the design process. By the time we've reached the detailed design, we generated a lot of data by modeling and simulation. But how best to deal with it? Well, it's easy. We look at it and we listen to it. Van Kahn's interactive display encourages my designers to explore the problem they're working on collaboratively.
That requirement's rather tight.
Hang on. I think there's a trade-off there.
Wait a second. I can hear the stress level getting rather high in that component.
You've got your people using all senses, huh?
We sure have.
No keyboards?
Well, there's a few still around.
Well, I've heard of multimodal interaction, but actually listening to data?
Multimodal, that's gesture and natural language, right?
Mm-hmm. Pointing and speaking input are still the leading edge, but anything that enhances dialogue with the computer. We're able to use it because Harry's father has a games company that is so fabulously successful.
Yeah, we did it okay.
Harry Chan, archetypal Pacific Rim man of the early 21st century. Energetic, optimistic, something of a world citizen. And, in Harry's case, constantly to and from the Shenzhen zone.
And don't forget the large display technology, ultra-high resolution, embedded video, superimposed documents, interactive functionality.
Here comes the plug.
Well, it's true, you can only afford those displays because the Pacific Rim is in love with interactive movies.
Seriously, though, that display allows our engineers to explore and gain so much insight that, for example, they can prevent over-design. And that really keeps our costs down.
I'm glad you still use human designers.
Come off it, Bill. Except for automating submodule design and design auto-suggestion, you'll never replace Homo sapiens.
No question. You've got to keep the designer in the loop.
We can all think of companies that try to automate design totally.
Ladies, gentlemen, as it's such a fine evening and still light outside, I propose we take a turn around the garden and then come back for dessert and coffee.
Very nice.
You see these personal information gatherers that we all take for granted nowadays? What a quiet revolution in the way folks get along.
I just wish somebody would come up with a more snappy name for them.
Well, PIG is the acronym.
Hardly elegant. But just look at them all here, chattering away to one another, to one another, to one another, to one Hardly elegant.
I like the name they have for them in the Pacific. Curious.
Well, yeah, but haven't I met you before?
Is that a pass?
No, seriously. My PIG guided me to a virtual meeting place on the Matrix, and I've seen you on a video talking about networks.
I do remember. I chose to leave that video there while I was trawling the literature. It was remarkable. Came across a couple of journals still published on paper.
Yeah, Sir William was reminiscing about email and bulletin boards.
Yeah.
How did you meet girls on the network in those days?
No, I don't see much artificial intelligence impact on engineering design, though I see there is new funding.
Bill, when we get back, you better not let them know that all you've got in that untidy office of yours is a telephone and a fax.
Shh! William, please. I have my reputation to consider.
That's an elegant PIG.
This older thing picks up video and audio, of course. Lets me tag the interesting bits, trained to my voice and handwriting. Poor little thing.
Now then, Bill, you're the celebrated defender of pencil and paper.
Paper? I nearly forgot.
Oh, Bill, what's this? Ah, a business card.
Look at that.
Bill, I haven't seen one of these in years.
Dinky, aren't they?
Ah, Bill, my old buddy. Smart by name, but scruffy by nature. Designer of a long series of very smart travel platforms, what they used to call cars. A necessary agent provocateur to any gathering of designers.
Okay, now, Bill, let me explain to you our new display work table. Now, it's an ordinary table, but you can also put down any sketch or written document and have it gestured into an electronic image which can then be moved around, scribbled on, voice annotated, and then the whole thing turned back, with voice annotation included if you want, into paper. And the system behind all that also keeps all our documentation.
I've never seen much paper in your company.
That's because we use active documentation rather than the passive stuff. That always cluttered the place up and took too long to get where it was needed.
I could buy that.
You might also buy the fact that our record of past designs can automatically criticize your new design as it proceeds.
I'm not really at home with that idea.
Yeah, how do you find your way around all that data?
Well, how do any of us these days? We're using a new approach which combines the old hypermedia idea with a combination of visualization and a new navigation technique. Oh, and of course we use intelligent browsers.
Well, Jane, do you think that's been helpful?
Well, yes. I mean, the main themes I seem to have picked up this evening have been, well, creativity, visualization, data capture, well, and information handling. But I think the main theme of my book might be, well, translations.
Yes.
Building bridges between experts of different kinds and stored data and, well, knowledge.
Do you think they guessed?
About you and me?
My research funding sugar daddy.
Oh, Susan, you do know I wouldn't do it for anyone else.
You're the best grandfather a girl could have.
That's all I have, Sir William.
Oh, yes. Well, can you send a copy to Jane for her book? And put a general use copy on the Matrix. You know the right places. Oh, but no need for that last bit. That's family album stuff.
Certainly, Sir William. But your dispatch copies need to be signed off.
Oh, must I?
You know the protocol.
Oh, very well then.